we did it. Right? Everybody good with that? All right. What are we doing now? We're doing not close. Oh, here we're going to, this is written up in the assignments. I think it's a fun example that's a little hard, but it's worth seeing. All right? So we're going to show, you know how we showed that anything that a DFA can do is closed under complements, and they're all the same, and hence you can close regular expressions under complements, but it might grow up exponentially when you do it. I mean, it could be scary, right? Here we're going to show, again a little bit like this, that the set of all languages computed by context-free grammars is not closed under complement, right? There are languages that can be computed by context-free grammars. You take their complement, they can't be computed by a context-free grammar. All right? And so here's an example. All right? So the input is going to be of the form omega pound omega, where the two omegas are the same. All right? Can we do that one? Remember, can we do it? That's the one we can't do because they overlap like this. Right? So they can't do it, right? Can't be done, right? They overlap like that. Everybody got that? So here's now a fun problem. Now we're going to do the complement. We want to generate every string that's, well, it's slightly not the complement. We could work on making it the complement, but let's do pseudo complement. We're going to get anything of the form omega pound omega, where the two omegas, they can be anything that's different. All right? Anything that's different can be done. And now, why can't they be done? I mean, why aren't they equal? Right? They're not equal. There's a reason. One reason is that they have different lengths. Right? They have different number of characters, then they're different. Another reason they're different is there's some index I at which the character is different. Right? Everybody agree? This is sort of definition of different. All right. So let's break it up into further cases. One, it could be that omega is smaller than omega prime, or omega is bigger than omega prime, or omega I is 0 and omega I prime at I is 1, right? Here we've broken it up into 4 cases. Right? Everybody buy that? We're saying it's one of those 4 cases. Now we're going to deal, right, we know how to do union, right? So now we're going to do each of these cases separately and union them together, right? So that's what our grammar is. Our grammar is saying, what is one of these things? Well, it's either that case, or it's that case, or it's that case, or it's that case, right? So now we just need to do a grammar for each of these cases, right? Does that make sense? And if you're disturbed by the fact that this isn't really a complement, we can put in more things in here which would cover some of those other cases, right? For example, it might have 2 pound signs, right? Or it might not have any pound signs. I think actually that thing covers all the extra cases, right? Not a big deal. All right, so how do we cover this case? Well, we can write it down as a context-free grammar. Not as context-free grammar. What is this? It's a regular expression. I mean, it's a pseudo-regular expression, right? We have a pound where these are matching length and this is bigger, right? Can you do this? This is classic you can do on a test. You need to be able to do this on a test. How do you do it? You concatenate that on, you spew these, you plop that, right? Everybody should be able to do that now, right? Are you with me here? Can you do it? Oops. Right, those are linked. So what's our Q? Our Q is that thing. Our A is, right? So what we got here is Q is going to be this, and our A is going to be that, and our C is going to be a character. Right? We can get some definitions. And so what's what's a Q? A Q is, what's an S? Well, it's that and an A. Why do we got an extra C here? Because we want more than one character. Ooh, ooh, ooh. And this was starred. Right? So this could be no characters. This is our extra character. Are people kind of buying this? Right? So that's what an S is. What is a Q? Again, we spew out characters and we plop the pound sign in the middle. Right? Everybody buy that? What's an A? Spew out characters. Right? What's a C? It's a character. Right? Is that good? Yeah? Why you need that extra C here? Well, because the Q is doing this, right? The A has 0 more characters, right? And what do I want here? I want 1 or more characters, right? And so it's the 1 that we have here, right? This AC is 1 or more characters, right? We could have said A was 1 or more characters, and then when we did it, we would have plopped a C here, right? That would have been as fine. That would have been equally good grammar. How many people are feeling? How are you feeling about these grammars? How many people could do that on the next test? How many people need help with it? All right. Well, why don't you can either ask for help now, right, or on Wednesday or day. Monday we can get some help. Any questions about it? Does everybody understand this grammar? Should I go over it again? This grammar? All right. So this is I would say your classic beginner grammar that you need to be able to do to pass this section of the course. All right? I mean, it's just, they don't get easier than this. All right? So we had some meaning, right? Here we're trying. What were we trying to do? We were trying to get all strings of the form omega pound a different omega, where the second omega was longer, right? So I wrote that down in a sort of regular expression way. Now, it's not in a regular expression because the ends make it. A regular expression couldn't do it, right? But everybody see how this is what we're looking for, right? It's some character followed by more characters, and what's true is this part of the string is the same, and this is strictly more, right? Everybody get that? Yeah? No. What we can't do omega pound omega where these have to be the same length and the same characters, right? Because if they're the same character, then omega 1 has to link with omega 1, and omega n has to link with omega n, right? So those cross over. Now, can we do 0, 1 to the n, pound 0, 1 to the n? Absolutely, right? Because this is linked with this, right? Only in terms of length. Only in terms of length. Here, you'll see, we're only caring, up here we care about the strings being the same, right? Here, we only care about the length, right? And when we come down here, we're only going to care about one character. There's going to only be one link, and we can handle one link, right? Because it won't overlap, right? Does that make sense? So here we say, how do you do it? Now, everybody get this string, how that's what we're looking for. Right? Everybody get that? Right. So now we want to see what's linked, right? In a quantum, they have to be the same sort of way, right? Information here has to talk to information here, right? About length, not about character, right? Right? If we're doing, right? So there's only this block is linked with this, but not subtlety in between, right? So we're going to make that give it its own name, right? We're going to give pieces names, right? So what are we going to call this piece? I'm going to tell you right here. I'm going to tell you what all the pieces are called. I'm going to give you nice names, right? A Q. What is a Q? A Q is that, right? It's a hash with the same length on either side, right? Then I'm going to say, what about this? I could call that whole thing an A, but I chose, I don't know why, because this is sort of a classic, right? We have a classic grammar for 0, 1. This is a classic. We need a grammar for 0, 1 star, right? This is going to generate all strings of any length, right? It's sort of a classic. So I didn't bring this in, right? Now, everybody understand that? How we broke it into names. And there were some choices there, but that's the choices I made. And then we can say now, okay, great. What is this? This is a Q followed by and then an A, and then we put an extra C in there. It could have come at the beginning or at the end. We don't care where. Anybody question about this line? You good with this line, right? And then, okay, great. Well, what's an A? A is you spew out C's, and then you plop the epsilon, right? Oh, what's a Q? We skipped Q. You spew out C's that match, and then you plop a pound. Yeah? Yep. That's a very good question. And I couldn't do them both at the same time. Right? This is working because the one side, I know the one side's bigger. That's what this greater than, this less than is saying, where this side is less than this side. Yeah. What is the full thing? It's either the less than, or it's the greater than, or it's 0, 1, or 1, 0. Right? There are 4 cases. And that's partly why we can do it, is we can, and what's nice, what makes this nice is these cases, remember the word ambiguous? Ambiguity. Is this grammar going to be ambiguous? Do these guys overlap? They very much overlap. These don't overlap, but there's cases where this is bigger than this, and there's a digit that's different. Right? And there could be a digit different in this way, and a different digit that's different in that way. Or we could talk about the ith one being different, but also the ith primes ones being different. There's many, many ways of parsing the same string. So this thing is very much not unambiguous. And I'm going to go on I'm just making stuff up here, but I would almost say if something has an unambiguous grammar, then its complement language has an unambiguous grammar. Right? I'm just making this up, right? But it's a good theorem, right? If it's not proved already, you can do a graduate thesis on it. But I bet you it's been proved one way or the other already. I mean, it's an old field, right? So everybody kind of following what we're doing here? You guys getting this grammar now? Yeah? These C's? They could be different C's. Yes. Right. Remember the way we parse. A Q goes to C, Q, C, which goes to C, C, Q, C, C. Now each of these, right, this can go down to a plop. Each of these C's is independent, right? And part of the reason they're independent is because it's a context-free, right? How we choose this C is independent of the others, right? Does that make sense? And that's why now we get any character, any character. All we've handled is the length. We haven't handled what that character is. And that's why it's 0, 1 to the n. Because any combination, once you fix the n, we fix the n by spewing n times, right? And then we have n c's. And then it can be any string of n characters, right? Is that making sense? You guys getting these grammars? Yeah? The which? Here? The end. They have to be the same length. Right? Right? They don't have to be, they're not linked in terms of characters. They're linked in terms of length. And that's why we spew them. As we spew them here, that makes them have the same length. Right? And why do we have to have them the same length? It's so that we can make this one longer. So that we can make them different. Everybody buying this? All right, so now let's say we need those some ith character to be different, right? So again, we have to be able to write it down. This way of writing it down makes it much easier to figure out what's going on, right? And what do we have? We have some number I of characters. So I guess, there are I characters before, so we must be indexing at 0 or something, right? Anyway, there's a character there. And then you can have anything. And then you can have a pound. And now we're working on the second string, right? So it has to have the same number of characters followed by a 1, right? That says that this character, its ith character is a 1, is a 0, and this guy's ith character is a 1. Right? Does that make sense? And then after, they can be anything. Right? Everybody see how we express that? Now, what would I expect on a test? My guess is going from that to this, maybe, it might be a little hard, but still I think you should be able to do it. But coming up with a grammar for this, once I give you this, you definitely have to be able to come up with a grammar for it. All right? So, everybody understand this line, where it comes from? Anybody not? Don't be shy. You understand how this is omega pound omega, where there's some I, where this ith character is a 0, and this I character is a 1, and that witnesses the fact that the two strings are different. Yeah?
What happens in the case of the empty string?
The empty string? Well, then could the second omega be empty? Could it be empty pound empty? Because then they would be the same, right? So if one of them's empty, the other better be non-empty, in which case they have different lengths. In which case, our last guy would have gotten it. Right? All right, everybody buy this? So how do we build a grammar for it? Yeah? Yeah, but then it's more complicated, right? You got to say, what's my definition of I? I don't know. If this is indexed, it's the third character. I'm going to index the third character 2, which makes this 1, which makes this 0. That's not actually so bad. We're indexing from 0. But you know why I did it? It's because it made my things easy. All right, so what's linked is they're linked by that I, right? And so what do we put together? And you know, I didn't even change this. That was a nice thing. I made my grammar standard. What's this part? What's an R? An R is all of this that's linked, right? Because this is all independent and can be concatenated on, right? So that's an R. And so what is our S01? Our S01 is going to be this R ugly thing, followed by 1, followed by an A. Right? Everybody buy that? No? Am I losing you? Some people are just have that I'm a panicked deer look. Can any of the panicked deers talk? You good? Nobody's a panicked deer? Everybody following this? All right, what are we doing next, right? Everybody? We got that? Right, and then what's this? How are we going to get an R? Can everybody do an R here? We're spewing. What are we spewing out? Characters. And what do we plop it in the middle? 0, A, pound. Right? There. Right? We spew out zeros. We drop in a 0A pound. Right? Everybody follow that? Here, this I could be 0. Yeah? I could be 0. How do you get, I mean, you got to check those things. You're going to say, what's my range of I? And I didn't say that. I could be 0 or bigger. Right? So here, how do we get I0? Is you do no spewing, and you drop this. Right? Yeah? Yeah? What's the question? How are you going to change it? I mean, here, let me answer a different question. It might say, hey, before we handled, here's a good question, right? Before we handled the 2 omegas being different lengths, so we don't need them to be different lengths anymore, right? They can be the same length. So if they're the same length, what do we need? We need this star and this star to be linked. They could be the same. Right? We could have J here and J here. Right? Is that good? It's good as a meaning. Can you build a grammar for it? Right? Because then these are linked and these are linked and they overlap and you can't do it. Did I answer your question? It was a good answer. I just know if it answers your question. You want to try again? People, I mean, does that make sense? Yeah?
I'm kind of lost. Like, last class, you explained it with that parse tree, and I understood it well. I don't know if you're able to explain it in terms of that parse tree.
All right. Tell me one rule you want me to explain.
Last class, when you were explaining it,
Yeah.
kind of plopping everything with the parse tree, and that helped show how everything was happening. And I don't know if you can do that again.
Yeah. But so is there a rule you don't like?
I don't get any of them.
You don't get any of them. Okay, here. Let's do R's, right? What is R? R has this form, right? It has to be some number of characters, followed by a 0, followed by any number of characters, followed by a pound, followed by the same number of characters that are there, right? All right, so how can I build a grammar for that? Well, like this, right? So what are my rules? What is an R? Well, what do I know? These 2 characters on the end are kind of linked, right? Would you agree that if I take an R, take your favorite R, right? Here are I characters, here's a 0, here's some thing, and here are I characters, right? I'm going to take the last character here and the last character here, and I'm going to delete it, right? Now, what do I have? Would you agree that this is an R? It's an R, right? So what is an R? Well, one thing an R is a character followed by, this is an R, this is a character, this is a character. So what is an R? An R is a character followed by an R followed by a character, right? So that's one way of sort of building it. The other way is it's saying spew and plop, right? What do we need to do? How do we get all these linked things? Whenever you want something linked from here and here, you want to link them in either length or in actual character. You have to spew on either direction, right? And then you plop in the middle. All right? So what are we spewing? We're spewing characters, right? So what is an R? An R is a character followed by an R followed by a character, right? Okay, what's this R? It's a character followed by an R followed by a character, right? What's this R? It's a character followed by an R followed by a character, right? And you'll note that the number of C's on either eyes match up. And then whenever you want, you can spew as many as you want that are matched up. And whenever you want, you can plop in a 0, an A, and a pound. Right?
And that kind of ends at R. Or now we're just going to do the same thing with H.
Now, yeah, what's A? A is a character and an A. It's a character and an A. Right? You spew out as many as you want, and then you plop the empty string. That gives us any string. Right? Now what do we have? We just have all C's. Right? And what's a C? Each C independently is a 0 or a 1. Right? Does that make sense?
I feel like on the right side, that'll make sense. Like on the projector, that right side, bottom side, that makes sense through that parsing thing.
Yeah.
That R where it says like 0, 1 to that power of I, that part doesn't really make sense.
Well, do you see that this is kind of like a regular expression, except we have these I's, right? What does this mean? This, I mean, here I could put for
C, and then in the middle it's supposed to be R again.
oh, this here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is any number of characters, and I just spewed off one of them. So now I have I minus 1 characters and I minus 1 characters, right? Another way of looking at it is to understand recursion, right? Remember my way of doing recursion is you can get your friends to do anything that's smaller, right? So suppose I want to compute n factorial, right? I can write n times, and then I get my friend to write n minus 1 factorial, and my friend does the rest. Right? So that's kind of what I'm doing here. How do I produce a string? Well, I can give my friend a smaller thing, anything as long as it's smaller, right? My friend is going to produce an arbitrary string of characters. What is this? It's an arbitrary string of characters that my friend is producing. How do I know that? Well, this is kind of pre and post condition. The precondition is I have an A. The postcondition is I have an arbitrary string, right? And how do I produce an arbitrary string? I need to produce an arbitrary string. How do I produce it? I get my friend to produce an arbitrary string, which is 1 character shorter than my string. And then I make his string a little longer, right? How do I produce some big ugly thing like this? Well, I need to do some work myself, right? So I'm going to produce the first character and the last character. That's my job. Right? Now I can give anything to my friend that's smaller. What do I give my friend? My friend has to produce, his precondition is an R, and he has to produce anything that's an R. But he has to produce less characters. So he produces I minus 1 here and I minus 1 here. And I bump it up to I. Is that making sense? I've got to remember when I say things, how to put them in the slides. Right? There's some thinking about recursion, something about this. And then we get so many slides, right? People complain, dude, you got hundreds of slides. Right? How are people doing with this? Are you doing okay with this? People doing okay with this? All right. How are we doing for time? We have half an hour. Excellent. Thank you. You know, my brain just, I can do some things and not other things. How long until we're done? My brain shuts down. And please don't ever tell me poetry. My brain then just shuts down. I certainly can.
So what about that last part, starting from 1 and then 0, 1 star?
All right, where did that come from? That was, what is an S01? This whole thing is an S01. Right? What is it? It's an R, right? Which brings us up to here. Followed by what? Followed by a 1. Followed by an A. That's a 1. Right? Why? Because it's a matchup with that. This is a 0 and this is a 1. It proves that the 0 and the 1 are proving that omega and omega prime are different. Right? Does that make sense? Yeah, that's what we were saying before. If I add the extra condition that omega and omega prime are the same length, we say, oh, well, we handled different cases before. Let's just make it sure they're the same length, right? Then we have to have this and this be the same length. What makes it impossible? Because this is length and this is length. And then they overlap, right? But as soon as we put a star are not overlapped. Right? They're not linked. Star's not linked. I is linked. Right? Does that make sense?
How can we get the S01 from the question?
Well, you know this whole thing here? Absolutely no way would I make you come up with this during a test. Absolutely no way. In fact, I can't imagine you doing this whole thing during an assignment. Right? In fact, the way I came up with this question, I remember somebody was reading, there are various books out there. And somebody came with me this question that they couldn't do. And then I thought about it, and I came up with an answer, and I thought it was cool. But how would you do it? I mean, what is the question? Right? Here's the question. Can I do omega pound omega prime? Right? And then how do I do it? I think, oh, well, I can't do it all in one go, right? I can't, for example, I cannot do omega prime where they're the same length and they're different. I can't do that, right? Because they're length, double length overlap, right? So I say, can I do this? Well, what are the cases? The cases, they could be different lengths. Can I do that? Yeah, I can do that. Oh, maybe they are different in a particular place. Can I do that? Well, if I don't care about their lengths, I can do that. Right? So, I guess I had enough background to have a sense of what I could do and what I couldn't do. And I picked off parts. Can I do this whole thing? My first reaction was absolutely not. Right? But then I thought, well, it was a question in Stipser book. So, well, I can do this part. I can do this part. I can do this part. We put them together, union them together, I can do it. Right? Does that make sense? So I can imagine putting this on a test. In fact, I think it might have been on a test last year or the year before. Right? But then I would have given you, hey, remember this was in the notes, And here I'm giving you all this part. Here's a part. Now can you do this part? Could you do the other part? Right? I expect, let me tell you what I expect. You should be able to understand what this means. You should be able to interpret from English to something like this. You should be able to interpret from this to a grammar. You should be able to tell me what each rule means. Right? This is kind of telling me my pre and post condition of each subroutine. Right? You need to tell me that. You need to then tell me the code for the subroutine. You need to be able to do that. This whole thing all together, there's absolutely no way you would get it during a test. Right? Everybody agree with that? Right? Yeah? Yeah. It might just happen to be the same, but you wouldn't know it. That'd be okay. Yeah? If they overlap, then you can do it. If they don't overlap, remember, A to the N, B to the M, C to the M, D to the N, you absolutely should be able to do that. Right? If you just switch these, you absolutely cannot do this. Right? All right, everybody good with this example? We're going to do another